Hello everybody, welcome back to another Manage training session. Today is going to be a process-driven training session regarding renewing a lease through the system. I'm going to be covering today how to look at your upcoming lease renewals due in 90 plus days. I'm going to be running through how you can start to communicate to your owners and your tenants through the task about the lease renewal. We're going to go through how you can add a rent increase and then finally renewing the lease again through the lease tab of the tenant's property profile and getting all of those dates updated in the system. All right, when it comes to renewing a lease, in order to see the data of when the leases are expected to expire, you have a few options. Now, jumping onto the dashboard, scrolling all the way down to the bottom, you have an upcoming lease renewal section. So this is going to let you know all of the leases that are coming up for expiry and then at what day range. When leases are 90 days out from expiring, the system is automatically going to generate a lease renewal task. And how you can find that task is via clicking here and getting it under the 61 to 90 days option, or you can go to the Action Center, type lease renewal, filter down to draft, and any upcoming lease renewals that either haven't been completed or have just populated because they are about to hit, or they have just hit that 90-day expiry point, are going to be found here. And all you're going to do from this point is start to develop your process. Now, everyone's process is going to be a little bit different on how they wish to structure it, but today I'm going to be running through maybe a few ways that you could do so by communicating with your owner and your tenant in the system. So if this was me and I was the property manager, first thing that I would do is find that task, open up the task, and I would move it from a draft status to a scheduled status. Now, once it does move to a scheduled status, if the task followers like the owner and the tenant are assigned, they are going to get notified. If you don't want them to be assigned just yet or notified just yet, all you need to do is click edit and then untick their names and then save it. So that's going to remove them from being a follower. But my process today is, as soon as I schedule it, I am going to be notifying my owners and my tenants directly with a message on the fact that that lease is upcoming, and I'm going to be in touch with both of them quite soon to discuss the renewal options. So I have sent a message to my owner and my tenant, which is going to send them an email response letting them know that I have assigned them one to the task, and I've also communicated a message in the task to them directly. Now, if this was me in my process, I would personally, as I have said to my owners, start to get a bit of an indication on maybe what the market is showing, and then I could use the task to put maybe some of my findings by replying to agency and have notes listed in the task. And then once I'm ready to call the owners, I would personally move the status to an awaiting approval. So I could do something like this. Now, this response I have popped here is just some internal notes to agency, and the reason that I have done that to my task is maybe if I do have someone else that also helps me with my lease renewals or needs to call the owner on my behalf because maybe I'm not here in the next couple of days because I am going on holidays, that just helps them if they are wanting to jump onto the task, or the owner calls the office, gets a little bit of an indication of potentially what my action steps are going to be. Now, because I have got my market research rent review all sorted and I'm ready to call the owner, I'm going to move my status from scheduled to awaiting approval. And the reason that I'm doing that is because it just filters accordingly the status of where I am up to in this process. And you never know, because you might have a large agency, right? And if your large agency has about 50 lease renewals a month, you want to make sure that you are updating them accordingly, because when you go back to the Action Center and I was to filter down lease renewals, instead of having all of my lease renewals pop up and getting super overwhelmed, I could just filter it down to the status that I want to focus on for that day, which for me right now is only 3. So it feels a little bit more manageable when I add that additional layer. So going back to the task, I have popped my agency notes. I'm ready to call the owner as I've moved it to that awaiting approval status. I have given my owner a phone call. They are more than happy to sign the tenants on a 12-month lease with a $50 rent increase. What I would do now after hanging up that phone is pop a little message back to the owner confirming that discussion that I've had back through the task. Perfect. Now I've sent that little conversation recap back to the owner. I'm now going to call my tenant. I've called my tenant. They are more than happy to proceed with a further 12-month lease and a $50 rent increase. So again, just because I've finished that phone call with the tenant, I'm going to go back and I'm going to confirm that conversation. Now, before I am going to do so, I am just going to double check when I need to input that rent increase in place based on my state's legislative requirements when it comes to rent increases. It might be 60 days, it might be 90 days, it might be 30, just depending on what state you are in. But I am going to double check that when it's going to fall in alignment based on the rental period in managed. So if I went and looked at 60 days from today, it is the 29th of September. My tenant's rent is due on a Thursday each week, and the 29th of September is a Sunday. So that system's probably going to push it back a little bit. So if I went to $750 and I changed it to the 29th of September, yep, the system's going to give me that auto population date on when it's going to fall in alignment with their rent pay period. Just make a little note of that. All right, so confirming that conversation with my tenant, and then I'm also going to let the owner know that the tenant has agreed on that rent increase in the lease. All right, so just having a little bit of a review on what I have done here. I have obviously confirmed with my owner and my tenant what's been agreed with the upcoming lease renewal and the renewal term and the price on offer. And I've popped all of my notes back in the system. Now, I am the property manager. I actually don't generate the leases and send them off to the tenants. I actually have this done by my PA. So I am going to update my task. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to assign it to Sarah, who is my PA, and I'm going to put a little agency reply. And I'm going to let Sarah know that this is ready to be arranged and sent to the tenant. So Sarah has let me know that this has been sent to the tenants. I've also updated the status in the task to awaiting signatures, again, just so we are all aware of the process that we are up to with this lease renewal. Now, I have gotten a copy of that lease back. The tenant has now signed it. What I need to then do is update the lease renewal status in the task tab. So I'm going to go to my lease tab and I'm going to select renew lease. I'm going to confirm my primary tenant's details, enter in the start date of the new lease, how long it's going to be for, double check that that's correct. If you need to amend it because the days don't align accordingly, you can just go in and change that on the calendar, or you can go in and change the actual dates. Are there any rental adjustments? Yes, they are. There is a $50 a week rental adjustment, and that was taking effect on the 3rd of October. Reason for that change is a rent review. Now, I do charge a lease renewal fee to my owners, so I'm going to tick yes. I don't need the letting fee, so I'm just going to delete that one. And my lease renewal fee, I'm going to just amend it. I've done a discount for this owner and I'm only going to charge him $100 this time. I'm going to click save. And then all I need to do is renew the lease. Now, I would have to upload a copy of my tenant documents as well. So just make sure that I upload the new lease agreement. And then the final step that I would do if this was me in that situation is go back to that lease task, click a reply to all, and let them know that this has been finalized. Perfect. So I've sent that final message. This is all completed. Last thing I want to go and do is make sure that I have completed my lease renewal task. So that is a bit of a process of finding out when your tenants are upcoming for leases, how to start communicating to your owners and your tenants through the lease renewal task in the system, how to add a rent increase and renew the lease via the lease tab, and then finishing off with completing that task and wrapping it up.